Alright guys, here's our next project here. This is a Sony Vaio PCV RS530G. As you can see, it's an older PC, Pentium 4, 3.2 gigahertz. I'm assuming socket 478, Windows XP Home Edition, 512 megs, PC 3200, ATI Radeon 9200, which I'm not sure if that's actually what's in here or not, but the thing looks pretty original, so it's most likely what's in here. But yeah, that's what we're working with now. I've unboxed this, but I haven't even plugged it in to see if it works. It supposedly boots to BIOS. So right there you see we do have it's labeled DVD-RW, CD-RW, and just a DVD-ROM, 1.44 megabyte floppy. And you can see this thing is pretty dirty. It needs to be cleaned. Power button, hard drive indicator, and there was a door down here, and it's obviously missing. But you see, we've got your camera card slots, and we've got S-video and composite video in. This is iLink S400. I'm not sure if that's a Sony thing or what. And 3 USB ports on the front. And if we spin around to this side here, you can see the case isn't in the best condition. This thing looks like it's been kicked around a bit. There's a dent right there, and you can see where there's a scratch right there down to the paint. But the whole thing is a little bit scratched up. And if we look at the back, you see we have our power supply. There's a rear exhaust fan. And on the I/O, we've got our PS2 ports for keyboard and mouse, parallel printer port, FireWire. This looks like an optical out port, 4 USB. Ethernet. We've got our standard audio jacks, and this right here, I'm assuming this is the 9200 LE, and this is kind of a capture card here. Probably, I don't know if it's a TV tuner card or what, but we do have another capture card on the back and one more Ethernet port. So I've got a couple screws I got to take off on the back here. Take this panel off. We'll take a look on the inside real quick just to make sure everything's intact before we plug it in. All right, there's the whole panel is removed. The entire thing comes off, and you can see we got the power supply in here is pretty tiny. Looks like the DVD burner, CD burner is not hooked up for some reason, but the DVD-ROM is. There's the floppy. That looks pretty decent inside here. Let me get a little light on it. There we go. Got a little light on the situation. Looks pretty clean in here, surprisingly. There's whoa, looks like there's some upgraded RAM in there. We're gonna have to take everything out here and check it out really good. That right there would be our GPU and our tuner capture card. Yeah, so that's what the inside of this looks like. That's interesting that there's some upgraded memory in there. Looks like some HyperX. And a motherboard on here looks like a P4 SDVL. So we'll look into that and see what that is, what chipset that has on it. But first thing I want to do before I do anything else, I want to plug this in and just make sure that everything actually turns on here. Alright, so I've got power, keyboard, and I've got a monitor. Monitor's over there plugged in. So we're going to go around the front here, and we're going to just hit the power button. And we have power, it lights up. And we hear a beep. Whoa! And we do have something on the screen here. So let's see, F2 to run setup. Okay, CPU, Pentium 4, 3.2 gigahertz. Okay, so that is what's in there. It does have hyper-threading. 2.5 gigs of RAM. BIOS version is from 2003. Alright, well, I'm happy everything seems to be working on it. I think what we need to do, though, is get back inside here and we'll shut it down. I think we're going to take a look at the CPU here. I think we're going to repaste that. We'll see what we have in here for RAM. 2.5 gigabytes. That's pretty odd number, but you can see there's probably, these are probably 1 gigabyte sticks each, and these are probably 256. That would be my guess. So that gives you 2.5 gigs of RAM. But yeah, let's see if we can get everything cleaned up in here. Take a closer look at this GPU. Make sure this is the 9200 LE, and then maybe we'll try and get Windows installed on here, because I would like to get this thing restored. It's not going to be perfect because, like I said, the case is in pretty rough shape, but I do want to find out also why is this unplugged. it looks like the cable can be moved up. I don't know. We'll have to look at it. Alright, so one thing I wanted to point out that I did notice about this is how clean it is. I mean, you can see on the back side of fan blades there's just a thin coating of dust on it, and I don't think anybody's taken this apart and cleaned it. I think it's just, it hasn't really been used all that much, which is surprising. Do want to take a closer look at those capacitors down there as well. So once we get this heat sink off, we'll take a closer look at that. We'll also get this repasted, because I'm sure that whatever's on there is pretty grungy. Alright, I've got the RAM out, I've got both cards out, and working on the cooler here, and it's got a pretty stout little system on it here. I kind of like that. Let me pull the connector out. There we go. Okay, there's a little bit of dirt on there, and that paste looks pretty bad. And yeah, you can see the socket 478 there. Yeah, we're going to clean that up good. We'll get this all cleaned up and repasted. And take a look at the memory. I was right, these are two 1 gig sticks of PC3200, so these are really nice to have. I mean, it's hard to find nice 1 gig sticks. And of course we have two 256 megabyte sticks here as well of the PC3200, which is DDR400. So those are nice, really nice to have. Taking a look at the cards that came out of it. This is the TV tuner. You can see it's an MPEG-2 encoder card. So that would have been a nice card to have back in the day for doing a lot of that multimedia stuff. And of course we have the 9200LE, which is exactly what this is. You see Asus RB280LE, it's 128 meg 9200LE GPU, AGP slot. And being that I'm really low on AGP cards, and most of the ones I have are pretty much crap, this would be the best, at the moment, the best AGP card that I've got. So I think we're definitely going to reinstall this in here, since this is what came with it. We're doing a restoration on this, and I think this will still be a decent card to use. Just the fact that it put something out, hopefully when the drivers are installed it still works, because I've had such horrible luck with these 9000 series cards. The capacitors on it look decent, so that's a bonus. Yeah, we'll just cross our fingers, hope for the best with this card here. Alright, so we got everything pretty much cleaned up. We got the capture card back in. Got the fans cleaned up really good, the heatsink cleaned up, wiped everything down. Now we're ready to repaste the CPU. Alright, one thing that I was looking at was these capacitors here, just making sure that they all look good. And they all do, they all seem to be in pretty good condition. So let's go ahead and get this cooler here reinstalled. Alright, I think we're hooked everywhere. That's a pretty cool, I like that, the way that thing attaches there. Alright, let's get the fan connected. Alright, so we gotta get the AGP card back in, throw the RAM back in, and we gotta hook up our drives. And then I noticed that I think the hard drive originally went here, and looks like whatever held the hard drive in place is missing. So it's probably held in with a screw right there. So yeah, I have nothing to hold the hard drive in, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to attach a hard drive in here. Alright, everything is back together, and we're installing Windows XP Home Edition. That's what came with it, so that's what we're going to install on it. It turns out that the DVD-RW does not work. I can't get it to read a disc, so just the regular DVD drive is what we have our disc in now. And I'm going to look and see if I got something I can replace that with, but it would have to be a DVD-RW that will take the same faceplate, just so everything's the same. If not, I may just leave it. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But mainly, I want to get Windows installed on all the drivers, just to make sure that everything does work on this whole motherboard and everything else in the system. And the hard drive that we got in here is a 120 gigabyte 7200 RPM. I didn't have a 160, and you can see we got a little creative with it. I did find a hard drive cage from another computer, and it wouldn't screw on here, of course, but I got a couple zip ties holding it on, and it's on there nice and secure. So the zip ties actually don't go around the hard drive; it goes through the cage underneath it. But so far, everything seems to be working, and we are installing Windows XP. So we'll come back and check on it in a bit. Alright, as you see, I had to use a program here, the Snappy Installer Driver Origin, to get all the drivers for this because despite the fact that this is an Asus board and it's a Sony Vaio, Sony doesn't have any support for this computer on their website anymore. No drivers downloads available. And Asus doesn't have this board listed, being that it was made for Sony. They don't have this listed on their thing. So it was a pain in the ass to get drivers for this thing. So yeah, I'm going through and getting drivers installed on it now, and hopefully everything will install okay. Alright, so I've got the whole system back together. I've got the outer cover on, and you can see I got the dent mostly removed from it, but of course the paint scratch is still there. There's not much I can do about the scratches on there. Some of the marks are permanent, and the front, the faceplate on the front, that cleaned up really nice. It was basically just some scuffs and a lot of dirt. Looked like, some stuff that got spilled on the front, so that cleaned up really well. Unfortunately, I do not have that door for the bottom, but despite that, I think it overall it cleaned up good, and it looks pretty good. These are just war wounds, signs of age. I don't know what else you call them, but anyways, let's take a look at some game performance on here before we wrap this up. So there you have it. Not too bad for a system from 2003 with a very budget card from 2003. I mean, it's not the worst card you could have got. This version of the 9200 LE is the has a 128-bit memory bus, and I think there was a version with a 64-bit. And it is better than the FX5200, which I believe was the contender to it at the time, or the equivalent, I should say, to it at the time on the NVIDIA side. This, I think, would run circles around the 5200, the FX 5200. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking games from like 2000 to 2002, it does all right. 2003, 2004, you see, we got to turn the settings down, we got to turn resolution down, but it still gets it done. And if you were to upgrade this with like a 9600, 9700 Radeon, it would do even better. So, yeah, there's some potential here, but as it is right now, it's just been restored to, the way that it would have been, aside from a few things missing, the door missing and whatnot. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way the thing turned out, considering it came pretty grungy and beat up. It's now a decent little Windows XP PC, so I'm pretty happy with that. So let me know what you guys think of it, and as always, I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.